Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. God, why do I always flub this? Hello, everybody. My name is Ethan of Coffee Break Gaming, and welcome to a tier list video. And to specifically one of Fire Emblem Awakening classes, because I thought it would be funny and interesting. And today I'm going to be joined by KuroiTsubasaTenshi? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, you were really close. Tenshi is the last third word.
Damn it. Anyhow, welcome, man. Pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be here.
To those of you that don't know your content, God, that. Why do I keep flubbing? Anyhow, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. I'm KuroiTsubasaTenshi, and I generally do most of my content on Twitch, but I have an archive account with YouTube, so stuff generally ends up there. I mostly do Fire Emblem stuff, and I'm sure it's no surprise to those familiar with the Fire Emblem community that Awakening would be probably what what I would consider my favorite. Um, there's just something about Lunatic Plus that draws me in, but I've also been known to dabble in the other ones and get addicted to the likes of, say, Engage.
Aren't you currently doing a run of 3 houses currently on your channel?
Yes. Yes, I'm working on a Three Houses minimum explorations run with the
Ah,
Lions.
that sounds really interesting, actually. So,
Yeah, it generally limits your resources a reasonable amount. It doesn't shut down everything, but it makes it tougher to get masteries and whatnot.
yeah, since most of the stuff is locked behind God. I
Monastery.
Yeah, thank you. I Sorry, my
Yeah, no
memory is ass.
statues and that's no problem. No statues, and then forgers aren't available until after the time skip. Those are kind of the two big ones that I consider the biggest losses.
Oh god, yeah, that is a massive loss. That Oh god, I just realized how limited you are in characters too. Jesus. That
Yeah, out of house recruitments are pretty tough. You maybe get one, um, just because I'm using the speedrun tech of skipping over chapters 6. I think it's 6. The
I didn't
Flame Abduction
I didn't
month.
know that there was a skip there.
Yeah, it's weird. So if you look at the buttons for that, it has explore and it grays out the other 3 options. But if you click skip, which is inexplicably still there, it forces a rest that shouldn't be possible.
Huh.
You can just leave Flame on the ground in the dungeon. She'll be fine.
She'll be fine, yeah. She'll be fine. I I did not know that existed. That is funny.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either, but Kirby Master is familiar with basically every Fire Emblem speedrun pointed that out to me, so
Dang.
I utilized that.
For the best, because honestly, if you had to go through that chapter it with the conditions that you had, oh my god. That would have been hell.
Well, I still have to do the map. It's just that we leave Flame behind and do no investigation whatsoever because we're just that diligent a professor.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. So, I guess we should probably get started. maybe. I don't know.
Yes. Well, Fire Emblem was pretty conducive to tangents since there are so many games in the series.
Mm-hmm. And heck, as somebody who has literally only beaten Three Houses like a few months ago for the first time, this is very interesting to me since I did not know that was a thing at all.
Yeah, if you want to see or get a crash course in weird tech and whatnot, watch the speedruns.
Will do. Alrighty. So, speaking of going into tangents, let's go into tangents about each and every single class in Awakening, shall we?
Sounds good. Some of these will probably be long and some will be very short.
Indeed. Since, okay. I have a feeling that one of the short ones will probably be Mrs. Galeforce over there, but we'll get to her later. Alright, so... let's start with good old Crommy Boy and Lucina's class, the Lord. So, the Lord class is the first class, and the one... actually, I think this is the only one of the few games in the series where you get multiple lords over the course of the game. Since I know there's this game, Fire Emblem 7, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, obviously, and Sacred Stones, to have multiple lord classes throughout the game. So...
right. I mean, technically... do you have that in FE4 as well, genealogy?
oh yeah, genealogy. Forgot about that. Forgot about good old Seliph. But,
Poor Seliph.
Poor Seliph. And...
little overshadowed by his father.
yeah, I mean, considering it's Sigurd, the best pre-promote in the entire franchise, yeah, pretty easy to be overshadowed. So
I guess you could kind of make an argument for Radiant Dawn.
oh yeah,
because you get a lot of quote unquote Lord classes that go by a different name.
Mm-hmm. Like Ike's hero to Vanguard classes, Alencia's entire shtick, the Laguz Kings, Micaiah. Yeah, there are a lot more Fire Emblem games with multiple lords. Now I'm thinking about it. Jesus. Speaking of the lord class in this game, however, if I remember correctly, it has swords and it gains dual strike plus at base and charm at level 10, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
All right. So I'm going.
Both of those are. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, but those are quite strong support skills. Just getting a flat 10% extra dual strike chance is huge. It's the equivalent of having an additional support level without needing to put the work into it.
Oh god, yeah, that is absurd. Like, there is a reason why, well, multiple reasons, but one of the big reasons for why you are essentially able to solo this game, especially on the lower difficulties with Chrom and Robin, is mainly because of that. Since, if I remember correctly, your support rank with a character affects how often you are able to dual strike off of their attacks. Right?
Right, it increases by 10% for every single rank, and then dual strike plus goes beyond that. So if you have an S rank plus dual strike plus, it gets very high. You're usually looking at high 80s to low 90s for the end of the game. And
that is absurd.
Yeah, if you bring in Limit Breaker from the DLC, you can actually push that to 100%.
Jesus!
Which is what people looking to do reliable apotheosis clears are usually aiming for.
Jesus.
It's not necessary, so to speak, that people who want to say my strategies are extremely replicable, they go for the 100% dual strikes.
I mean, if you have that guarantee, why not, you know? But
Indeed.
as somebody who doesn't have as much Lunatic Plus experience as you do, does he really stack up in that regard? Because normally I'd, like, put him in, like, I'd put Crom and Lucina's Lord class into A tier normally, but considering your experience, he might be higher, they might be higher, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I kind of debated it, but I think I would put them top of A. Because while they are a great support class, the sword walk, if they want to take the lead, is a little bit of a problem,
Yeah.
especially against counter. But it does allow them, like, dual support plus still works if they're in the lead, so you're also able to push your dual strike percent very high with whoever marries them if though that person ends up being the backpack and
That is absurd. Like, honestly, yeah, I do honestly agree with, like, top of A. Especially considering the amount of pure support that leads into this. Because
right.
what class can honestly brag about the fact that they had to have one of their skills nerfed so hard in the next game that they changed an entire mechanic around it. Like,
This is true.
this man got one hell of a downgrade in Fates. Like, oh my god. Although,
Yeah, I guess
granted,
damage output wise, it is nice to have to work through the support levels to get the reliable dual strikes and fates, but you definitely notice the difference in power between
oh
full
yeah.
damage and half damage,
Oh god, yeah.
and the ability to proc multiple times too.
Oh my
Like
god.
um, the big apotheosis strategies usually center around taking brave weapons and then giving brave weapons to the backpack so that you can proc brave dual supports off of your brave attacks.
Oh! Oh god. As, okay, yeah, I should probably mention, I have not done an Apotheosis run, so all of this is, like, entirely new to me. I did not know that that was that powerful. Jesus.
Yeah, the offensive power of Awakening Dual Strike is potentially very absurd.
Oh
And
god, yeah.
Apotheosis caters enemy stats and skills toward being able to absorb those. So you do want to set those up because you kind of require the damage output.
Yeah. And honestly, yeah, I feel like especially knowing that, top of A is absolutely perfect for the base Lord class. Which then leads
Yeah,
us into... Oh, sorry, go on.
I guess a question would be how much we want to factor like the specific characters that are um involved with the classes too, like as their default. Because Crom and Lucina also both just have very high growths and good bases.
That is
So
true. Not only that, but
so yeah,
can...
the thing is that the sword lock is almost what keeps them in check too, from also being just extremely dominant leads.
Yeah. Which makes sense. Like, we don't want them to be too ridiculous, you know?
Right.
But, thankfully, upon promotion into Great Lord, they get lances. They stay footlock, though, which sucks.
Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate because it kind of just makes them worse paladins.
Yeah. I will admit the skills that they get in the Great Lord are pretty good, though, which is Aether at level 5 and Rightful King at level 15, I think? Yeah, level 15.
Right,
Which,
and Ether's pretty alright. It has issues with proc rate because it's skill over two.
yeah.
So if you're comparing it to say Soul, it does less for your sustain, and it has the Luna hit on it has the same problem as normal Luna does, is that enemy bulk in Awakening is largely hit points, so most targets you proc Luna and you add like 3 damage.
Yeah. Since, yeah, even against, like, tankier enemies, as you said, it's all HP. So,
Yeah, some of the tankier ones you do get a little bit more, like Wyverns and Generals, but the greater majority of enemies are going to be just basic axe infantry and sword infantry, so a lot of Myrmidons, mercenaries, barbarians, fighters. And they just really don't have a defense stat.
yeah. They have good HP stats, though, which doesn't make sense for Swordmaster, but whatever.
Yeah, it's I see it as they made that as a design choice so that um your backpacks, if they're not quite as trained, which is probably going to be a thing because they don't gain as much experience, even if they do manage to snag the kills when they're assisting. Um, Having lower defense and res on those enemies allows them to contribute more.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah,
Especially,
and the game's basically designed around pair up, so you really don't want to disappoint your players by giving all the enemies 15 defense and say Long Ku jumps in and hits for 1.
yeah. Or, I guess if you procs Astra, 0, 0, 0, so many zeros.
Well, you can't proc Astro if you're the dual strike, but yeah.
Fair point. But, actually, now I think about it, does Rightful King help with apotheosis strategies? Because it does allow you to
Um,
boost your proc skills by their proc chance by 10%. So it's an
right.
added.
No,
Sorry,
keep
you
going.
go.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that is a little bit more fillerish. I guess it depends on how no holds barred you're going with something like apotheosis, which most people are just going to use everything
Right.
because there are a lot of bigger skills out there, like pick up aggressor from Dreadfighter, Limit Breaker, which adds another 10 to your attack. So you get those compared to Rifle King adding the 10% chance of your proc going off. Um, the math on that would favor Limit Breaker and Aggressor a lot more.
Yeah. Since those are a lot more consistent compared to just a 10%.
Right. So, like, if you're considering a point or like the 10% increase of your total damage versus just getting 10 flat extra damage, it's you need to have a very big attack score
Yeah.
for Rightful King on, say, like something like Luna to actually be better than either of those.
Yeah. Which, now that I think about it, really doesn't help Great Lord. Since, I mean, other than Aether, I feel like you could just be in a different class.
Yeah, which is why I usually don't end up straight promoting Chrom or Lucina. Usually they hop over to a different class. Chrom in particular, I tend to favor Cavalier a lot. Lucina's, I feel like Lucina's a bit more flexible for that.
Yeah,
It,
especially
it
as a
depends a
child
lot on
unit.
her. Yeah, it depends a lot on her mother, but like it's hard to argue Cav with Chrom. But Lucina really appreciates Cav too if she decides to do it.
Yeah, especially if you are going for Chrom Robin or Chrom Sumia, you likely already have Gale Force already, so it's you don't necessarily need to go out of your way for that anymore, and you can just get like Discipline or Outdoor Fighter or Defender a lot faster.
Yeah, and discipline's one of those understated skills. I guess not to talk about it too much with Lord, but it's one of those things where um if you hop to Cav versus promoting to Great Ward, you get javelins so much faster.
Oh god, yes. Like, it is ridiculous, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Right.
So, honestly, considering everything, ooh. You see, I don't want to put him in D, but considering everything we've talked about, like, the only thing good
Well,
from this is Astra, really. Sorry,
I mean
not
the thing is
Astra,
that
but, you
yeah.
know.
I guess the thing is it's worse Cavalier or worse Paladin, but both of those classes are also very high, so I don't think I would put it D. I would consider it more of like B tierish.
B works. Especially considering the characters that go into this. And the fact
Right.
that, well, the level system in this game is wild.
It can be, but
But,
I mean, most of the games with reclassing can get pretty wild with it. Fates, you can do some pretty crazy things.
oh god. Don't remind me. Good old Super Ophelia. Super Ophelia and some of the ridiculous builds that I have come up with just on a whim. They're all on paper though, so I don't know how good they are.
If it's a damage stack build, usually it'll work.
Yeah. Thank God for damage stacks. Alright. Next up is Grandmaster. Not Grandmaster, Tactician. Which I don't know how to rank. I'm gonna be entirely honest. How do you rank this?
I would be pretty inclined to put it into S, if for no other reason than Veteran. Veteran is a very silly skill. It's probably contender for top 3 skills in the game.
Yeah, that is really fair. Like, oh god. There is a lot we can say about Grandmaster and Tactician. We'll get to Grandmaster in a bit, but Tactician is... oh my god. Veteran, as you mentioned, Solidarity. The fact that you get magic at the prologue.
Right, and for up until chapter 7, unless you do early prologue or paralogue 2, um, your physical weapon or 1 to 2 range physical weapon access is fairly limited. You
Yeah.
get 1 javelin, 1 hand axe. Well, I guess technically 2 if you count Cordelia's javelin.
Oh yeah.
Um, but that's like right before you can start buying them.
Yeah. Like,
um,
tomes are busted in this game in general.
yeah, enemies don't have a defense stat, but they have an even worse res stat for the most part.
Yeah.
So, generally speaking, tome axis is extremely valuable early on and continues to be good even beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And for a similar reason, bows are uh, better than a lot of people coming out, say, GBA would want to give them credit for.
Yeah. And heck, if they played Binding Blade, you'd know that they aren't that bad in all of the GBA games, at least.
It's true. Although, the hit rate on some of the things
Yeah,
with bows is a little questionable.
it is a little bit questionable. I'm not gonna deny that at all. Which, thankfully, in my most recent playthrough of Binding Blade, I haven't had to deal with hit rates of that variety that much, but that's only because of the fact that I'm doing an old swords run, so that hardly counts.
Right, so you have accuracy, but no 2 range.
Yes. And not a lot of good classes, like flyers. We'll get to that later. But,
Right.
anyhow, S rank, yeah?
Yeah, definitely would put that there.
Agreed. Like, hands down. These next two classes are absolutely ridiculous. Like, oh my god. Speaking of the tactician's promotion, Grandmaster.
I wouldn't rate that as particularly high. I'd probably put it around B as well with Great Lord.
That's fair.
Because it is technically a better tactician. It does have, like, it still has the tomes, and then because it's got the tome sword split, it can also get around Aegis and Pavis Plus.
Yeah.
But it also gets more competition once you're starting to see seals from
Yes.
the more basic mage classes.
Mm-hmm. Especially
And
because another big thing against it is it's honestly not the best promotion per Robin at that point. Like, you can go into it for, like, Ignis if you want, but isn't just Sorcerer better?
yeah, Sorcerer, even Sage can be better.
Yeah.
The main thing is that I guess this is also part of the flow of the game is when you're hitting the point where you're looking at promoting, you're about to enter a large run of desert maps. And
Oh,
unfortunately
God.
for Grandmaster, it doesn't get mage movement in desert.
I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, so Robin tends, if you're sticking with Tums, Robin tends to prefer, um, well, Sage, Sorcerer, or Darkfire.
Wow, that is a massive... Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, above or below Crom?
hmm. I would probably put it below Grey Lord.
Alrighty. There he is.
It's also got an awkward situation where Rally Spectrum is really good if it's used on your good combat units, but if it's your good combat unit using it, then you're using up your good combat units turn to buff, which
Yeah.
is a little contradictory.
Very contradictory. Like, I feel like the biggest plus for Rally Spectrum is that you could make a rally build for Morgan, but why?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's only okay on, and it's probably only just okay on Robin if you're doing like a no DLC challenge. So if you want Relay Spectrum, you're forced to either use it with Robin or Morgan.
Yeah.
Which it really, the only time where that's going to be relevant is doing Apotheosis.
which... Yeah, considering everything, B rank is just perfect for this. Hey, at least Ignis is good. At least.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because Ignis, the damage added tends to not seem like it's that much, but if you're promoting off of, say, an Ana shop early, like a little bit early, so that you have it for Chapter 6, it does generally let you get just enough to get one-shots on counter enemies if you're desperate there.
Which is a massive boost, especially as you mentioned, against the counter enemies, which are terrifying.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Hey, at the very least, they're better than the counter magic enemies. Seriously, what was Fate's thinking? Honestly, though, yeah, I'm okay with this. Like, granted, I'm not exactly a fan of this class anyway, especially considering, well, everything it has going against it. The desert thing that you brought up is just another tip of the iceberg. Should we start talking about Cavaliers next?
Sure.
Okay. Hear me out. Instant A tier mounted unit.
I would agree.
I mean, there's obviously more to it than that. Like, discipline, increasing the amount of weapon EXP that you get per combat is a godsend. As you mentioned earlier when we were talking about Great Master, the time that it takes to get to javelins are being cut in half is amazing. And, well, of course, there's also Outdoor Fighter, which, if I remember correctly, is a flat bonus. Oh, wait, no.
It's 10 hit and avoid when you're outdoors, which the game's unfortunately a little bit nebulous about it, but because it rates it on a per tile basis, which is a bizarre way of doing it, but
That's very weird.
yeah. Thankfully, I guess because of how Awakening maps are, it's mostly outdoors, so you're almost always going to have that bonus anyway.
Yeah. Which is definitely helpful. But, honestly, mounted utility and discipline alone are just... so good. So good.
It's like prime reclass for any physical unit who has access to it.
Oh god,
and on top of that, it gives strength, speed, and defense as when used as a backpack. It also gives skill too, but most people don't really consider skill as much.
I mean, skill is still a really good stat to have a bonus in, which...
It's true.
Honestly, yeah, this class deserves A tier instantly. I don't know if we should put it over Crom or the Lord class. What do you think?
I almost want to say they're kind of equal, so we could probably just leave the order as is.
Okay. That's fair. And from one promotion, from one mounted unit to another, Paladin.
Which is better Cavalier.
Yes. Unlike in Fates, where Paladin is a downgrade at a certain point in like 2 out of the 3 routes. This game's paladins are actually pretty good. Like, you get Defender and Aegis. And if I remember correctly, Defender goes unchanged in Fates?
I believe so, yes.
Let me double check that, actually. When the Hold on. The Fire Emblem wiki is having too many ads. When the user is the active unit in a pair-up, it increases all stats by 1 except for movement. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a small boost, but it's noticeable, and it lets you go past your caps.
Yes. Which, I don't know about you, but I think that's really good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There are definitely a number of skills I take over it, but generally speaking, if you're following a Cavalier to Paladin path and you pick it up, it's probably not leaving unless you're doing a fairly involved promoted class or promoted reclass route.
Yeah. Which I feel like 99% of the fan base isn't doing that most of the time. Unless,
Probably
well,
not,
they
no.
really want to go ham.
It's kind of thing where you might see, or you will probably see it with units like Crom or Lucina, but maybe less so if you're just puttering around with Sully or Stall.
Yeah. Which, even I gotta admit, like, putting them into flyers is kind of really good for them, but honestly, Paladin is a really good class to put them into.
Well, Crom doesn't have a choice on whether or not he wants to be in Flyer, because
Yeah.
he has no Flyer reclasses.
Unless he... Actually, does he? Actually, what am I thinking? This isn't Fates.
He has yeah, he has Archer and Cavalier as his secondary classes.
Well, hey,
And I
at
don't
least
believe
2 mounted classes.
yeah, I don't believe there's an item that allows anyone to pick up a DLC flying class either, so
Yeah,
Paladin's kind of his best bet.
yeah. I guess it could also send him in the Dread Fighter, again, for the skills that it provides, like Aggressor, but even then, like, Paladin's just ridiculous.
Right. If he's picking up Aggressor, he's probably going for an Apotheosis build too, which means it's going to be the rare time where you see Crom hop into Sniper, actually.
Really?
Yep. Because Apotheosis has a lot of dangerous enemies, so Dual Strike Plus with a longbow, allowing him to just bomb enemies with Sage Dual Strikes with Celica's Gale, for instance.
That sounds busted.
Yeah, a little bit, but you're fighting against enemies with who all have dragon skin and max hit points and actual defense stats, so
Fair enough. Now, the big question. Where do you want to rate Paladin? In, like, tier list percent thing.
I would probably put it just below Cavalier. Because Cavalier's got the availability advantage on it.
I can
Even though
agree
Paladin
with
is technically better stat-wise and also provides better backpack bonuses. Cavalier is just available earlier and brings discipline.
that. Yeah.
Whereas you technically might not get discipline if you're a Paladin if you're coming in from another promoted class.
Oh, yeah, right. Forgot about that.
Yeah, that's one thing that Fates, I guess you might call fixed up in in that making it so you don't have to demote in order to pick up tier 1 abilities.
Thank you, Fates. Alright, from a all-around good class to one that I actually like a lot, but I know ain't the best, Knight. I'm gonna be honest, I love this class.
Knight has so many problems, unfortunately, which just compounds poor Kellum's situation.
Poor Kellum. Poor Knights. Like,
yeah.
I've been spoiled, because my first game was Fates, and specifically Fates Conquest, and Effie is amazing. So I was thinking, oh hey, Knights are amazing at every game. Nope. It hurts, but I'm not gonna deny Knights suck.
Yeah, the problem is mostly their move. Although, I guess their reliance on defense also causes problems if they encounter Luna Plus enemies, because then they just get shredded, because they're probably getting doubled, and then they're getting doubled with Luna Plus.
Yeah. Which, Luna Plus has an insane activation rate, so...
Well, it's 100%, so, yeah.
Yeah.
So most of the time, even if you have a high defense, you're losing at least 90% of your health, if not just dying.
And unless you are blessed in terms of speed or coming into this class via reclass in order to get, oh, I don't know, indoor fighter or something, like, you aren't gonna have the speed to not get doubled, which kind of hurts.
Yeah, pretty much. Even if you are a speedy unit reclassing into it, it's gonna lower your base speed enough that you might have problems. It really depends on who it is, but
Yeah.
it makes it just generally all around unattractive to even think about.
Yeah. Which, I guess in a Lunatic Plus setting, you really wouldn't even consider reclassing Kellum because of that horrid early start. Which...
Kellum has the issue too of if he tries to reclass as, say, like Thief to fix his speed. He's suddenly about as durable as Gaius, which is problematic.
Yeah. I wish he had better, like, alternate promotions, but sadly he doesn't. Which...
Yeah, I mean, which isn't to say, like, Great Knight isn't completely horrible, but it definitely has its downsides.
Yeah. Hey, at least he's able to get back at some people with Luna.
Yeah. But even if we consider, like, the lower difficulties too, like, Knight with 4 movement, in maps that are generally kind of large and don't have a ton of choke points, so you're looking more for zone control, Knight is really bad at that.
Yeah. Especially because, again, magic. Magic is really good in this game. And you can just do it better with other characters that you get later. Or, heck, even reclassing Robin into Sorcerer and slapping Nosferatu on them. Like...
Right, although I wanna point out that Nos isn't as good as people tend to sell it as with Robin.
Yeah.
Just because the life drain tends to become a bit overkill once it's actually viable. Unless you somehow manage to get a Robin who has no stats despite getting probably 40-some levels.
Yeah. I have actually heard of somebody with a absurdly stat-screwed Robin, and it hurt to hear about, but...
I have had a few of those Robins, but you usually get enough raw stats that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But I have gone into late game Lunatic Plus with like 23 defense before.
Jesus. I'm sorry, Knight class, but I... Okay, at the very least, can we put the Knight in C tier? Because I know for a fact it isn't the worst class in this game.
Yeah, I would probably put it at the low end of C tier.
Alright.
So we can stack stuff in front of it as we go, I guess.
Yes. Like, maybe General? I don't know, what is... Hey, we got a rally! Our first non-rally spectrum rally.
Yeah, rally defense is pretty good, but I don't know if it's worth going into general for. It does have more move and a little bit better combat, but again, it still sucks at zone control.
Yeah. At the very
I guess
least, it has axes now.
yeah, I guess the one thing that Knight and General are both really good at is being a backpack, because
Yeah.
that's a lot of defense. But
Oh, God, yeah.
still,
Still... Yeah, no,
yeah.
General kinda sucks.
Yeah, I would probably put it behind Knight just because Knight has better availability and still provides a sizable defense boost for being a backpack.
Agreed. And now, we come to something that both Cavalier and Knight share. Great Knight, which is... Whew boy! Finally we get to talk about a good Knight-esque class. I mean, I say good, but...
Yeah, it has actual mobilities, but it has the zone control that Knight and General don't.
Yeah.
It also has fairly close to their durability, plus full weapon triangle control.
And Dual Guard Plus at level 15.
Yeah, that comes in a little bit late, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
it's, I guess if you stick with Great Knight that long, it's not too bad to have. And I would probably rate it as a better pickup than Luna, unless you're going into, like, the more difficult DLC or Apotheosis. Since, again, most enemies just tend to not have a defense stat.
Yeah. Honestly... Well, there's also the availability thing, right? Since
Right.
if you have Frederick, you're basically set until he hits level 15, which I feel like then you can start to reclass with him. That's what I usually do, at least.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you want to do with him, but yeah, he's fairly solid just sticking with Great Knight.
Yeah. Like, God, that man hits hard. Also has some of the best lines in the franchise history. Dang.
Fred goes hard.
Fred goes hard.
Pick a god and pray.
Honestly, though, I honestly wouldn't be remiss putting Great Knight in either C, like, high or mid C tier. Because it's better than General, hands down, but it's not as good as Paladin for what you want it to do.
Right. And it can still pick up Discipline by coming out of Cavalier, which
Yeah.
you can... I guess that's Fred, and then if you do decide to use Stall, you probably want to do Great Knight with him. Just because he tends to lean more on defense.
Doesn't he also have, like, a massive HP stat, too? And
it's an okay HP stat. It's one of those things where unless he's getting speed blast,
fair,
he probably has to start stacking. But I guess it's contextually it depends.
Yeah. I don't know. Where would you rate it?
I think I'd agree. Put it top of C.
Alrighty. Oh, great, another sword lock class.
Yeah, sword walk, but doesn't have any of the benefits of being Crom or having the Lord skills.
Yeah, but hey, at least it's able to wield Amaterasu and the Soul Kadi.
Once it actually gets there.
Yeah, if it actually gets there. I mean, it does have a
True.
Void plus 10 advantage, but
And Void plus 10 isn't very much on its own.
yeah,
It's not gonna let the class avoid or dodge tank very well. Even considering early game being Axeland, it still puts them in a very difficult position.
mm-hmm. And there's,
And Vantage tends to also not be relevant unless you're going into some of the harder content like Future Past or Apotheosis, where you might consider doing like Vengeance Vantage.
yeah. Which, even then, wouldn't it be better to, well, if you're, since you're going for since you're usually going for child units, wouldn't it just be better to have somebody who has Vantage inherit, get, pass on Vantage to a child?
Yeah, most of the time you want to inherit something like that if you can. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it definitely feels like units want to avoid being a Myrmidon.
Mm-hmm. Hey, at the very least, though, we get a pretty decent Myrmidon. At least.
Yeah,
It's,
Lonku's kind of coming in carried by his weapon rank and
yeah,
that
he
killing
really
edge.
is. And again, most Myrmidons, unless you're Rootger, are.
That's true.
I'm honestly thinking, like, mid-C tier for him. For the Myrmidon. What do you think?
Yeah, it's probably somewhere about there, I guess.
Alright. There we go. This works for now. Next is Swordmaster, and God, those are sexy skills. Like,
I'm not too sold. Well, I'm not too sold on Astra. Swordfair is nice, but I'm not sure if I want to put up with going to level 15 Swordmaster for it.
yeah, that is fair. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Swordmaster, especially the type of shenanigans that you were able to do with Swordmaster and, like, casual lower difficulty play, but in the higher difficulties, yeah, I'm relatively certain that it kind of gets eviscerated.
Astra is also a very funny way to accidentally kill yourself on counter.
Oh god, right. Oh lord. um yeah, that I'm gonna be
I w-
entirely honest that I forgot about that. I forgot about Kenner.
I do want to say that like, a decent upside for Myrmidon and Swordmaster together is they do give a big speed backpack bonus. So if you have someone really slow who really wants a lot of speed, that Swordmaster can be that answer as far as um, giving them a marriage partner to backpack with.
Yeah. You hear that, Kellum? You finally have a good backpack option. Please note that we at Coffee Break Gaming Industries do not endorse the use of Wolanku as a backpack. I I'm gonna be honest. I'm thinking lower than Myrmidon when it comes to ranking it. When it comes to ranking Swordmaster.
Yeah, I would say that because most units who do get stuck with Myrmidon as a base class probably won't promote into Swordmaster.
Yeah.
Like Wanku very likely would rather be an assassin.
Yeah. That or I've run, like, I've tried to figure out how to get him like hero and something like that. I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but working on it. I don't even know if it's possible.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't have Merc or Fighter. He does have Wyvern, I believe.
Well, hey, at least he's
So,
able to
oh,
fly.
he has Thief and Wyvern Rider.
Ah,
The unfortunate part of going Wyvern Rider with him would be that
you
he has
lose
to
out
start
on
from
his
E
ranks.
axis, yeah, and loses big C rank swords.
Yeah.
Whereas Assassin lets him keep the swords and then provides him with a ranged option,
Right,
and
yeah,
one
I
that
forgot
gets
about
around
those.
countered at that, so.
Yeah. Damn it. My dreams of Hero Lonku are gone.
Well, there's always creating a modded awakening, I guess. It'll
I'm
lets
fair.
everyone reclass other stuff like Robin does.
uh, now I'll just play it vanilla with like a few texture packs and stuff. Ooh, next up is Thief, actually. Okay, finally. Okay. Movement +1. That's my argument for A tier.
Yeah, that's definitely not quite A tier material. I mean,
Yeah.
it's move +1's pretty good, but Thief has quite poor stats all around.
Yeah.
It's a classic um Thief issue for most games where they have bad combat, but they have lock touch, which makes them feel extremely mediocre, but they're also useful sometimes.
Yeah. At the very least, though, when it comes to, like, units that are able to go into Thief, like, as you mentioned earlier, Longku, and I think a few others that I can't name off the top of my head, since I...
Yeah, you can do it with Pan, although she would rather do Wyvern.
Yeah. Like, at least they have the combat stats to be able to work with it, at the very least. However,
Right, but you're also having to reclass those characters for it, which I feel like that should be a strike against Thief. Because
yeah,
otherwise, we're looking at Gaius as our default thief, and he is very unfortunate.
very much so. I'm honestly debating whether or not I should put Thief above or below Knight. Because at the very least the utility is good, but
Yeah, I guess also as a backpack, it's a speed and move. Yeah, I think it's move for thief.
yeah.
So that's reasonably attractive too.
That is, yeah. I
I
don't
guess on
know.
the other hand, knight big defense is also quite attractive.
That is true. Um,
So I would maybe put it between knight and general.
okay. I can agree to that. There we go. Took me a second, but I figured it out. And, oh god. I'm gonna be entirely honest, I have never used the Trickster class, so I don't know how good they are.
Trickster's quite good, although I guess a lot of that is Anna propping it up.
Fair.
On the other hand, it's also a barely mobile staff using class in a game where you can buy rescue.
Yeah. I feel like that's a relatively big knock against it.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
A big knock? Or...
Yeah.
What?
Like, granted, there is the stat... Actually, does it even have the stat... What is rescues?
It's E rank.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
What was I talking about? I have never used this. I have never used the trickster class in this game, so.
Yeah, generally speaking, most classes that can use staves are probably going to be like B rank by default, if not higher.
Yeah.
Just because rescue, which is viable, and is magic over 2, which magic stats get quite high in this game. It provides massive safety in pretty much any situation.
Yeah. Not to mention, again, Anna.
Yeah.
Which I've never used because I didn't really see the use of Anna, but Lord, was I wrong. I'm more than willing to admit that,
her competition for lock touching is Gaius, and so you can basically compress a healer and a thief into one with Anna, on top of, if you need emergency damage, she's actually pretty good at it until about Vom.
That's fair. Actually, don't you also get Gangrel as a trickster?
Yes, although that's basically after the game's over. Because
Okay.
those paralogs come after you complete chapter 25. So, at best,
yeah, Anna
if
and
you
Gaius.
do Gangrel first, he is useful for like 6 non-DLC maps, tops. Which is pretty poor in terms of availability.
Yeah, I'd say that's horrid in terms of availability. Yeah, I'm... Like, B rank works. Like, do you want me to put Trickster higher, or...
No, I think it's good where it is, because its combat isn't super. So,
Alrighty.
yeah, I think just below Grandmaster feels good.
Okay. And, ooh. Okay, now we get to funny time. Assassin.
Hey,
Lethality's funny.
yeah, it's got a poor proc rate, unfortunately. But for the most part, because Assassin has high strength and speed, it's not terribly concerned about whether or not it procs lethality.
Yeah.
It's kind of everything that Swordmaster wanted to be.
Plus bows, so outside
Yeah.
of counter range.
Yeah, and because it's bows and swords, it's that ability to get around Pavis or Aegis on demand.
Perfection.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, as long as you can keep using the attack stat, or the same attack stat for both weapons, a class that can get weapons that can hit Pavis type and Aegis type just get a very large boost in terms of usefulness when you're playing on Lunatic Plus.
Yeah. Heck, even in, like, the earlier difficulties, Assassin is really good. Like...
Yeah, its raw strength and speed are just there as far as if you want to kill stuff. Its durability leaves a little bit to be desired at times, but...
Yeah. It's
generally
actually
speaking,
what I like making Kellum into the most in the earlier difficulties. Because at the very least he works.
That's fair enough.
But, yeah, as you were saying before I so rudely interrupted you.
Oh no, I trailed off a little bit there. I pretty
Ah.
much said everything I needed to.
Alrighty.
So yeah, it's I guess on top of that, it's also got strength and speed as a pair up, which is extremely attractive if you wanted to run a assassin as a backpack. Yeah, strength, skill, and speed.
Ooh, yeah, that is attractive. It also had... Oh, right, I forgot it has pass at level 15.
Yeah, typically pass isn't gonna end up being relevant. It's one of those things that sounds cool and then
Isn't.
it is more useful for the enemy than for the player, but you know, occasionally it comes up.
Yeah. I... If I... I'm gonna be honest, I'm extremely tempted to put Assassin at the bottom of B tier, top of C tier. What do you think?
I feel like it deserves to be higher than that. I would actually
Oh.
put it in A tier.
Alright. You think about here's fine?
Probably below Paladin.
Okay.
It's got good killing power, but it doesn't really have the same durability that Paladin does for just pure juggernauting.
That's fair. Alright, and next is Barbarian.
Yeah, Barbarian is very unfortunate. Mostly because it would be better than Fighter if it actually had someone who default represents it, but there's literally no one in the cast who starts as a Barbarian.
Yeah. Like... I'm gonna be entirely honest. Unless you're heart sealing Veek, I don't think a lot of people are actually gonna be going into this class.
Yeah, there's some funny stuff you can do with Henry as a backpack as a Barbarian, but it's not the best.
Yeah. Not only that, but the skills are kinda trash.
Yeah, this Despoil is one of those things that sounds good until you realize you must initiate and the proc rate is not going to be very good for a very long time.
And then there's Gamble.
Right, which is, you don't, as a player, you don't want to lose the hit.
Yeah.
Gamble is kind of infuriating on the enemy because it raises their crit, but
It's not good
player
on
skill,
you.
it's not helpful.
Yeah. Which is... It's honestly hilarious that Fighter doesn't go into Berserker as well, because you'd think that Fighter... Like, we're going to be talking about Fighter fully soon, but you'd think that Fighter would just straight up go into Berserker, considering how good its skills are for Berserker. Heck, one of the things that I would recommend a new player do as for, like, after you get him to level 10, just reclass Veek into Barbarian and just straight up promote him.
It's an interesting path, but I guess the thing is that Vake also has hero access, and it's kind of hard to argue for most other promoted classes over that.
That is true, yeah.
I guess he could do early warrior too, but warrior is usually like a finisher class, and it's a very good class, but usually you want to go hero then into warrior, so then you have big muscly warrior with soul.
Fair. Especially because of the fact that, well, bow, so you get around counter.
Right.
That's fair. The reason why I recommend it for newer players is because of the fact that you get a better crit boosting skill and axe fair out of Berserker if you just promote into it instantly after you get to level 10. Which
You could I guess if you want to be funny about it, you can technically stack all of it together. You can put Zeal, Gamble, and Wrath together.
that is true, yeah.
Your hit rate's gonna suck, but
You're gonna be critting 80% of the time.
assuming you're using a killer weapon, yeah.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I guess without going too much into Berserker just yet, because we're still talking about Barbarian, Wrath got the big nerf stick compared to the Telia series.
It is a shame. We miss you, Tellius Wrath.
And I guess technically, now that I think about it, technically international Tellius, because Japanese Radiant Dawn Wrath was pretty bad, if I remember correctly. It's like 20% health as a threshold,
Ugh.
and it has like a skill percent chance to give you the crit boost.
Ugh. Yeah, that is bad. I'm glad that they evened that out in the West.
Yeah, I think the translators might have seen that and went, "What are we translating? Why is this skill so bad?"
Why is this so bad? Isn't this supposed to allow for crits? Why is it a random chance to give more crit? Yeah, whatever.
Right, so yeah, I think I would rate Barbarian quite low just because it has the very sad no availability issue.
Yeah.
I would probably, well,
Its skills aren't helping it either.
yeah. I guess it, as a backpack, it still gives strength and speed, which is fairly desirable, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I guess, it's maybe as good as Myrmidon?
Maybe. Oh. I'm kind of tempted to put Barbarian above Myrmidon only because of hand axe. Only because of hand
Right.
axe 1 to 2 range.
I think I would agree with that and also argue that the strength boost, strength and speed as a hybrid base is a little bit better than speed luck.
Yeah.
Unless you very specifically need Myrmidon's higher speed boost.
Yeah. Which you aren't often going to be needing.
Right, especially for because if you backpack, say, Wong Hu, since he's the default Myrmidon, a lot of the girls aren't as concerned about getting speed so much as getting strength and or defense.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like that's fair. Next up, Berserker. Now, I'm going to unfurl the curtain a little bit, and you told me yesterday, when I came to you with this idea, that Barbarian had a niche use in Apotheosis.
Or Berserker, yes.
Berserker, yes, sorry.
Right, because it has that big strength speed increase that Barbarian also brings, but better. And it has better combat stats. And generally speaking, it brings big damage as a backpack. So if you're doing like the brave weapon into brave weapon thing, the Berserker can come in with huge brave axe hits, as long as you properly set it up. which usually means needing to go and off and inherit hit plus 20 because Berserker hit rate is really, really bad.
Yeah.
But it is a niche in Apotheosis where usually they're going to want to hang out with the snipers if the snipers aren't trying to do fish for the Celica's Gale attacks. And it helps the snipers themselves too directly.
Yeah, because more strength is more strength.
Right. So I would probably put it at least ahead of Barbarian on there. Because it's a niche that's extremely specific, but it's still like an upside.
That's fair. I also agree to that, but for different reasons. Since I'm not as experienced with Apotheosis or Lunatic Plus as you are. So I often look at Berserker as a class that is really good for getting crits and pair-up. And for the games that have pair-up, that holds very much true. Because, again, my first game was Fates, so I was introduced to Berserkers that had big strength that went into their pair-up as well. But I feel like the skills are actively helping Barbarian out a lot here too. Because, again, Wrath was nerfed, but it's still really useful in the long term, especially when it comes to, like, lower level play. Because a lot of players are going to be benefiting off of the crit that comes with it. Especially because of how easy it is to set up, considering that they're always going to be in combat. And the extra damage from Axe Fair also helps, but they're a physical unit in a game that really, really benefits magic. And they aren't mounted, and they're weapon locked. Granted, they're weapon locked to a 1-2 range weapon, but that isn't gonna help you later on.
Yeah, with their high strength, I would argue that they do kind of keep up with magic to a degree, throwing hand axes. The big issue being their hit.
Yeah.
Because despite being billed as a crit class, I also don't have the best skill cap or its skill base.
Yeah.
Which also hurts their crit, unfortunately.
It really does, yeah.
And Fates did get around that by going back to how the older games did it by just giving them flat crit bonuses as this class thing, but unfortunately for Awakening Berserkers, they are not Fates Berserkers.
Yes. If this was Fates, oh god, Berserkers would be in a completely different class. They'd be in a completely different tier of their own, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I'm fine with this.
Alright.
So next up is Fighter. Ooh, boy.
I would rate Fighter fairly good. Nothing, like, excellent, but it's definitely, especially with HP plus 5, like, they can usually tank just about anything as long as you can give him enough of speed backpack that he doesn't get doubled.
Yeah. And considering what we have in the future, there are a lot of speed backpacks.
Indeed. And it's not a premium class to reclass to, but those with access to it, there could be an argument to jump into it.
Oh,
especially
God,
since
yes.
you eventually do get hand axe access.
Mm-hmm.
And it promotes into hero or warrior, which are both premium promotions.
Mm-hmm. Like, again, warrior has bows, and hero has soul. So 1-2 range and 2 range soul is really good.
Indeed.
Honestly, yeah, I'd have to agree. This is a really good class. Like,
And
hands down.
as a backpack, it also gives strength and defense, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. I'm... Ooh. I'm kind of halfway tempted to put it at the bottom of B.
Yeah, B sounds fair to me.
Alrighty. Perfect. And next up is Warrior. Yeah, it's a premier class, as you just got done saying, so I'd be
It's
halfway...
actually one of the... Sorry?
Sorry. I was just gonna say I'm halfway tempted to put it into A tier.
It's actually one of the few classes I would consider S tier.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Because it's got high strength, it's got good speed, it's got good enough durability. Its res is maybe a little bit low, but magic enemies are not quite as common as physical. Its weapon axis is just all around very good because it's got the best physical 1 to 2 range with axes, and then bows work off of its strength to bypass any pesky Pavis Plus enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically got enough stats where if you pair a paladin up to it, with rally, like nominal rallies like Basilio's rally strength and a dance,
Oh yeah, I
a
forgot
good
this class has
warrior
rally
can,
strength.
yeah, a good enough warrior will 2-round Grima without any dual strikes using a brave bow, a forged brave bow, I should add. Actually, this just straight up kills because we did enough damage that Doll just wins.
Stay with me.
Get ready!
How about this? Damn you!
Nice 13% crit. There we go.
I'm sold. Holy crap, I was not expecting that.
I was not expecting that. But I was expecting not to expect something, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, Awakening Warrior has a lot going for it. It's one of those things where I've kind of joked in Fates that it was so good that they had to remove it from Fates.
Accurate. Extremely accurate. Not only that, but it's pretty good to really good in a lot of other games as well, so... Hey, that's a plus.
Yeah, it can depend, but it at least has a claim to fame even in like the GBA games of making archers sad because it uses bows and has higher strength.
Mm-hmm. And has 1 to 2 range on top of all that. And a cooler
True.
crit animation.
Yes.
I'm sorry, that spin up is... Mwah. Okay, Mercenary.
Right, so Mercenary does have that sword lock problem, unfortunately.
Yes.
But as far as non-Lord sword lock classes go, it's probably the best of them.
Yeah, because, like Myrmidon, it has high speed and skill, but like Fighter, it has pretty good strength as well as defense.
Yeah, definitely better defense better general bulk than the other sword classes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I I know Armstrift gets a lot of praise, but early on, depending, like, cause relatively common reclass for Robin is to dip Mercenary, or if you're using Gregor, to have Armstrift in play, but your luck's going to be a little low at that point, so Armstrift is kind of like a long-term investment thing.
Yeah.
So it's nothing something I would credit Mercenary with too much.
It's nice if it happens, though.
Yeah. It's one of those things where the real impact happens when you get to the end of the game and you're just using your legendary infinitely.
Yeah.
But until you get there, it's a little more so-so and just kind of I guess it's nice to have.
Yeah.
And Patience is an okay skill, but it's kind of like Avoid plus 10. It's not a huge number, so unless you're stacking it, it's probably not helping you dodge tank that much.
Yeah. And I guess while we're on the topic, I'm glad that they swapped that out for a strong riposte in the next game. Like,
yeah, stronger
God,
pass
yes.
is definitely the consistency of it is way nicer in the Fates version.
Oh god, yeah. Honestly, I'm gonna be entirely honest. Despite it being a sword-locked class, I honestly think that it is... I honestly feel like it should be extremely high in B tier. Because of what it can do. Or what it can lead into, really.
I would probably rate it similarly to Fighter, I guess.
Okay. So, kind of like around here?
Yeah, something like that.
Alright. Didn't mean to do that. Let's do here. Perfect. Hero. Soul. Goated.
Yeah, it's one of those premium Juggernauting classes. It's not quite as good at it as Warrior, even though Warrior really wants to borrow Soul from it, just because it doesn't have quite as much strength. I guess it's got more skill, so you'll see Soul a little more often, and then a little higher speed. It's about as durable, but it doesn't have bows to bypass Pavis, which can get it into trouble here and there, depending on how your dual striker is feeling.
Yeah. At the very least, though, I can... If you're, like, in a female... If you're going female... If you have a female mercenary, I can honestly see you dipping into Hero for 5 levels and then hopping out of it and going into Bow Knight. Because Bow Knight does also benefit off of Soul, too, doesn't it?
Yes, Bow Knight can also do that.
It is... Yeah, Hero's just a really good bridge class.
Yeah, it's not too bad to stay in, too, at the end, as long as you've got other answers to stuff like Pavis or high defense enemies, which you're not going to see too much of, but when you do run into generals with heroes, you can tell.
Yeah. And if any of them are wielding axes, it has axe breaker.
Yep.
Which
does help a lot.
Yeah, I was
you
about
see
to
a lot
ask.
of you see a lot of enemies in the lunatics towards the end where they've got their hack forged axes and free hit plus 10 or 20. So they're coming at you with 65, 70 attack. And yeah, okay, it's 30 listed hit. But if they beat you with that, and if it has Luna Plus, well, bye-bye 50 hit points.
Yeah.
Whereas, unless they have Hawkeye, Axebreaker just kind of removes that threat entirely.
Mm-hmm. And heck, even in the lower difficulties, I mean, I I can't tell you how many times Axebreaker has saved my runs with how useful it is. Like, it's one of those sleeper skills in the early difficulties that is just mwah, so good. I'd be willing to rate this at the top of A. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I would put it somewhere in there too. I would maybe put it below Lord, but it's like equivalent to Paladin and Cavalier. Like,
Oh yeah.
that those three are all just very good.
Oh god, yes. And ooh, Archer. Okay.
Yeah, Archer is unfortunately in a bit of an awkward situation
Yes.
because it's one of your few two-range damage sources, and one of your few ways around Travis Plus in the early game. But you're stuck with Virion.
Yeah. I like
And
Virion, but even I gotta admit he kinda sucks.
yeah, and to be fair, his bases are perfectly usable, mostly because he has debows, so his attack
Yes.
is kind of just in that right place. But as an archer, he tends to not go very quickly, and for some reason, IS decided he should just have really bad bases.
Yeah, I don't know why they thought to do that.
So even though Virion actually has decent growths, climbing out of that hole is really difficult for him,
Mm-hmm.
especially as an archer. So if you want a decent archer, you're kind of forced to reclass someone into it.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure how many characters are really going to want to do that over options like Cavalier or Fighter or Mercenary, even.
Mm-hmm. I know that there is, like, a child unit that is able to go into Archer. I think it's Rajat. I think it's Starja's kid that's able to go into it.
She starts as an archer, yes, Noir. She joins quite late. It, like, she has a map that sort of feeds her a little bit because she's in a protected area and she can attack the flyers. But she is also a unpromoted archer who is probably getting fairly limited boosts from her parents. I guess it depends on how hard you go on it. But even if her parents are fed, the enemies in her chapter are not really any kind of joke. So it can
Yeah.
be quite difficult for her to do too much against them.
Mm-hmm. Heck, it's not even like the skills are that great either. Like, skill plus 2 is good, but Precedence is...
I would probably rate Prescience a little bit more just because archers are likely to initiate, and 15 extra hit can be huge.
Yeah. I guess
But
the reason why I'm discounting it a little bit more is because I don't have that Lunatic Plus experience. So hit rates they didn't really matter to me in the earlier difficulties.
yeah, on vanilla lunatic even you'll probably feel it more because the flyers tend to be a bit dodgier, especially if they're griffins or falcos.
Yeah. Ooh. I don't know how to rank Archer. What are you thinking?
Hmm. Actually, another point for it is one thing good about it is as a backpack, it does provide strength, skill, and defense,
Oh,
which is fairly desirable,
that
generally
is,
speaking.
yeah.
And I guess for Virion specifically, he does reach C support with Fred quickly, so you get even more out of that. So I guess generally speaking, I would probably rate it maybe below Great Knight, above Berserker.
That's fair. I'm good with that. Okay, next is Sniper, which... Sniper Crom. I'm very interested to learn about that.
It's basically a standard Apotheosis build where Crom and Lucina are the best at doing it, but you can kind of do it with anyone who has either a good Sage or Berserker backpack set up. So you poke someone with longbow and you drop some big brave attacks. And usually you want that sniper to also have Grey Knight axes so they pick up Luna, and then just try to stack up the damage as much as you can against the Apotheosis enemies. It's also a decent class to run in Lunatic Plus, because it's a class that you might be hopping into from another promoted class that's a little more viable for other characters who aren't Virion to consider going to.
Okay.
And it has actually quite reasonable defenses, surprisingly.
That is surprising.
Yeah, and decent damage output. It's mostly the bow lock can be a problem for it, as in terms of general use, but it can be also quite funny if you take a kid who inherits Gale Force and make them a sniper, so you just have a sniper that's kind of zipping around and probably doesn't miss. Also has longbow access, so.
And also, double bow, towering bow.
Right, although those are going to be. Because towering bow is a shiny pickup, so you have to get that through luck.
Yeah. Which
And then
might
double
not
bow.
always be great.
And double bow is a regalia that's not something that drops from the Deadlords, so you'd have to be getting that through stuff that's not technically in the normal campaign. I guess it depends on how you feel on that.
That's fair. I mean,
But I would say it probably deserves to be in about B.
yeah, I was about to say the same. Think about right here.
Yeah, I guess I would put it about equal to Trickster. Because it's got that extra reach, but Viable Rescue is also just like so absurd by
Yeah,
itself that Trickster doesn't have to have super good combat to compete.
indeed. Ooh, okay, next up is Bow Knight. And, if this was Fate's Bow Knight, I'd have more, or even more to say, really, because you can carry over movement +1, but you can't do that here, so... I'm gonna be honest, though, Mounted Archer.
Yeah, Mounted Archer gets around, gets sword bows, it's like Assassin, gets around Aegis Pavis. I mean, even if you account for move +1 on the Assassin, Bow Knight's still gonna have more move.
which is absurdly good.
Yeah. Rally skill's pretty okay. It's helpful here and there for if the Bow Knight isn't actually engaging in combat.
Yeah.
Um,
Bowbreaker's handy.
yeah, Bowbreaker's handy. Maybe a little bit weird for a primarily bow unit to be using, but
Yeah.
um, and they can usually find niches to make it. I guess
Yeah.
if you're
And
I guess it's gonna normally be like Bow Knight versus Bow Knight combat when it comes down to that.
yeah. And there are a few Bow Knights in the late game of Awakening, so
Yeah. Yeah, it's nowhere. It's not axe breaker level breaker, but I guess it's an okay breaker.
yeah. Not only that, but if you're going hero into Bow Knight, then you're carrying over soul, which I guess isn't something in its favor, but it's something that it can do.
Yeah, it's something that'd be helpful. It's not going to be as good as say like the soul going into paladin or warrior because you're not going to be throwing around javelins or hand axes, but it can keep you healthy-ish, I guess.
Yeah. I honestly, for the fact that it's mounted archer in of itself, I'd honestly say it's above assassin.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Assassin has a little bit more damage, but you get a little more mobility out of Bow, so you could almost
It's
it
a
could
nice
be
trade.
ahead. You could maybe swap them. They're about where they need to be.
Yeah. Okay, next one is Dark Mage.
Yeah, Dark Mage is one where I debated whether it should be A or S actually, but I think I'm kind of leaning more towards high A.
I agree.
It's a
Mainly
very
because
strong.
Sorcerer exists.
Well, it's a very strong tome class, and it's a very like easy natural swap over for Robin.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's also something where I don't see the build used enough, but like a Dark Mage, instant Dark Mage swap for Laurent is actually quite strong.
Ooh. Sounds interesting.
Yeah. The biggest assets I would say for Dark Mage are actually its two skills, which are like promoted tier strength, but you get them on a promoted or unpromoted class.
Yeah. Like, Hex and Athenema are so good. Honestly, yeah, I agree with high A. Like, easily. Since you weren't gonna get this type of offensive power anywhere else this early. Because, again, you can reclass Robin, or you can get Tharja at chapter 10, I think?
I think it's 9. But
Still
yeah,
low.
it's one of the desert chapters. Let's see. Yeah, it's chapter 9, and
Another point in her
um,
favor.
yeah, the thing about Tharja, she does have hit issues, even with Hex and Anathema.
Yeah.
It can be a little not great for her. So it turns into her wanting to use a lot of high accuracy tomes, which usually means you might have to forge something for her.
Yeah. Even then, though, like, you have Robin, and you also get
Yeah.
Henry not too long later, so...
Henry, unfortunately, is kind of awful at
Yeah.
at doing dark mage things. His speed is,
Trash.
yeah, it's almost unsalvageable. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure what IS was thinking.
I'm not sure either. But hey, I like Henry. Even if he is bad.
Yeah, he's a fun character who has an unfortunate stat line. He
Agreed.
can, yeah, he can still be made to work, but he's more like a chipper, which
Mm-hmm.
is a little bit weird to think of, considering like the Dark Mage Sorcerer line is usually on the tankier side as far as mages go, but um, he has the problem of like with knights, where if you let the enemy, you're just gonna get thrashed.
Yeah. Should I put Dark Mage lower then? Just like a little bit?
Um, hmm. It's a little bit hard to say. Actually, I guess I'd probably keep it there actually, because
Oh.
I guess fun thing, unlike Fates, auras work from the rear too.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair.
So
Fair, fair.
Backpack, Tharja, or Henry can still provide Hexathema, which is kind of ridiculous on its own.
Yeah, that is absurd. Okay, now on to. Okay, this is. I know that this is going to probably cause a little bit of a debate.
All right.
I, despite how good Sorcerer is, I don't think it's S tier material.
Nani?
Oh, I would agree.
Oh my god.
But
Okay.
I would put it at the top of A for sure. Like it's still
Agreed.
quite good.
The main reason as to why is I feel like people hype it up too much. Because, granted, yes, what it does do is amazing. However, it's not consistent. You're relying on a proc skill in the form of vengeance, and the characters that go into it at base need a little bit more work to do what you need to do from it. I'm not going to deny it's an
Yeah.
amazing class, but it's not the best for Tharja and Henry out the gates. Heck, it's not even great for Henry.
No, not particularly.
Yeah.
But it is strong enough to be an extremely desirable reclass option for anyone who is magic inclined.
Oh
Which-
god, yes.
Robin, and then also Laurent, as I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And Vengeance does eventually get to be reliable, but you have to work at it.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, I don't think Tharja and Henry will ever hit that without significant... without probably grinding towards, like, an Apotheosis build.
Yeah.
But Vengeance is kind of key to one of the bread and butter Apotheosis builds, where Brave Weapon with Vengeance with 1 out of either 85 or 90 hit points.
Jesus.
Yeah, so
that
you do
sounds
that,
absurd.
and do that with Vengeance. So you do that, and then you have. Usually they like to do Sage on Sage. So you have a Sage with Celica's Gale doing both of those. And then your two Vengeance Celica's Gales get potentially four Celica's Gale attacks from your backpack. And all vantaged.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so that's kind of the bread and butter, where you set up killer it's coined VV for the Vengeance Vantage.
Fitting name for it. Kind of reminds me of a dual. It kind of reminds me of dual attack stance Vantage builds for Fates.
Yeah, it's a similar principle.
Nice.
And then Tomebreaker is
Interesting.
it would be hard. I think I'd probably be overselling it to say it's as good as Axebreaker, but it's one of the other higher tier breaker skills.
Yeah.
Because in the back third of the game, you start to actually face quite threatening magic attack enemies. And that includes sorcerers who might burn Thema with their ruin.
Yeah.
So just being unhittable solves a lot of that.
Yes. It's good. It's really good. But another reason why I don't think that it deserves S tier, look at what we have in there right now.
Yeah.
That is one
It's,
hell of a wall. That I think is only going to be broken by one other class, but we haven't even gotten to that yet, so...
Well, I've got two in mind, but one of them is probably going to be in retrospect obvious.
Oh, okay. That's going to be interesting once we get to it.
Maybe less interesting than you think.
Alrighty. Yeah, I'm curious now. Next up is Mage. Hey, Magic +2 is good.
Yeah, focus a little bit less so, but in general, I mean, it's mostly got good numbers. It's a little more offensive than Dark Mage. It doesn't quite have as good skills, but it's tomes.
Tomes are good.
Muriel and Rickon are around when you have limited chances to buy javelins or hand axes.
Mm-hmm.
And it promotes into Sage, which, viable rescue once you get there.
Viable rescue.
So it's a good investment target.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, but as you keep saying, Apotheosis builds go burr.
Yeah. So yeah, Sage will be what I'd probably rate highly after, but like Mage as kind of a stepping stone is kind of similar to Mercenary, where it's a good investment target. It performs pretty well as it is.
Yeah.
And it provides utility that a lot of other classes fail to in the early game.
Mm-hmm. So, B rank maybe?
So, yeah, B. Yeah, B might be fine. I'm just trying to think. Is there an entire tier's difference between Dark Mage and Mage? I guess. Yeah, B is probably fine because its default class users are good, but they still require a lot of work if you want to get them going. Especially Rickon with his base speed as low as it is.
Yeah.
And then, given the opportunity to reclass, if a character has a choice, they're probably going to pick Dark Mage over Mage every time.
Mm-hmm. And, ooh, want to be getting even more magic? Because our next class has a rally. Rally magic, to be
Yes.
specific. I am very bad at this. Yeah, Sage. I don't use it much in my playthroughs. That's only because of the fact that I've only played the game like 3 or 4 times. But I can still say, God, it's good. God, it's really good.
Yeah, it's an upgrade on Mage. It's a little more comparable to Dark Mage / Sorcerer with the amount of offense it can put up once you get there. Plus, it has the viable rescue thing going for it, especially with it being one of the higher magic classes. Its rescue range gets to be very large, especially
yes.
since Fair directly adds magic when you have a tome equipped, which means it increases your rescue range by 2.5 tiles.
Yep. Which is a absolute godsend. I'm gonna be entirely honest. I feel like that's fair. Like,
I'd maybe put a little bit lower.
alright.
Maybe below Paladin.
Okay. That's
Just
fair.
because it's not going to be like it's got great utility with the rescues, and it can do a lot of damage, but it doesn't have the same durability that Hero, Paladin, or Sorcerer does. So you're not going to be running in and juggernauting a lot of the time with Sage.
Yeah.
Barring, of course, the Apotheosis build where you set up Vengeance Vantage and just kind of go burr.
Mm-hmm. Anyhow, on a slightly less high note on my end, but I'm not sure about this one for your end. Dark Knight.
This is one I rate quite highly. I tend to end Robin in it a lot of the time. It's got that Sword Tome, Aegis and Pavis bypass utility. Its magic pales a little bit compared to Sorcerer and Sage, which can cause some issues in terms of killing power here and there, but it's got a ton of durability.
Mm-hmm.
It's a prime choice for a Juggernaut class, especially since if you set it up with 11 sword and tomes, it's hitting that lower defense of the enemy too while it's at it.
Yeah. It is. I'm honestly not as happy about this class as you are, but mainly because of lack of experience and from the units that I've put into it. I usually put Muriel and Rickon and Muriel's kid into this class, and Muriel's done fine, but I feel like Rickon and Muriel's kid are not the best in it. But maybe that's because of the fact that I've gotten unlucky. Maybe it's the fact that I'm inexperienced with this game. Or maybe it's because of the fact that I'm just bad. I don't know.
Laurent also has that awkward scenario of joining in a desert map where he probably doesn't want to actually be a Dark Knight for that map.
Yeah. That also might do it.
He should have similar enough or higher stats to his mom where, yeah, Dark Knight really should work for Laurent.
Yeah, I must have gotten really RNG screwed then.
Yeah, Rickon can definitely be an issue, but that's mostly because it's Rickon.
Yeah.
And he's gonna have trouble doubling, so the mobility to initiate onto enemies is gonna be a little bit lost with him compared to Sage, which means that even if he's not looking like he's gonna be able to secure a kill, someone else could, and then he could rescue them out if they look like they'll be in trouble.
That's fair. Honestly, yeah, I'm gonna be banking off of your ranking here because I feel like mine is a little not great considering past experiences. So where would you rank Dark Knight?
Um, I would probably rank it around the same place as Sorcerer.
Okay. There it is.
Right.
Okay, so... Ooh, Cleric and Priest are up next. I'm...
Right.
Ooh.
I mean, it's hard to argue with Lys's utility.
It is
during
really
the
hard to
time.
argue with. Like, I don't know how you are able to argue with it. She is a staff user. With a rally
Yeah.
when she promotes. Actually, 2 rallies, since you
She
can
also
promote her
has-
into Sage or War Cleric.
Right. She also has that monopoly over staff experience.
Yes.
Because until Maribel shows up, there's no competition, and then when Maribel does show up, there's still no competition because Lyssa probably has twice her magic.
Yes. Granted, Maribel has the mounted utility, but Lyssa's
Yeah,
Lyssa.
which... Yeah, unfortunately that kind of works against Maribel after a couple maps, because you hit that desert run, and she's a cab unit.
Yeah. I'm not gonna deny. Yeah, Maribel suffers in those chapters while Lyssa's only going to fly. Not only that, but again, Lyssa... The Cleric is also able to work off of multiple separate rallies too, because I think in her natural class set alone, I'm not entirely sure on this. Hold on, let me double check.
Yeah, she technically has access to 3 rallies, but don't make Lyssa Pegasus Knight.
Yeah, no. Like, hold on.
Actually, I guess it's technically 4. You could get rally, speed, move, res, and magic, but
Oh yeah.
Lyssa as a Pegasus Knight is pain.
Yes. It's still something that you can do though. Like, you can get 4 rallies out of her, and she has good healing utility. If you are going for Dark Flyer, you get Gale Force, which, if you are able to kill with her, makes her really good. And I'm sorry, but the next class I am extremely biased on as well, but the fact that she is able to beat the ever-living crap out of a guy with a frickin' axe is hilarious to me.
Yeah,
Like-
that's best left to below Lunatic, because unfortunately her strength tends to not be good enough for
Yeah.
the Lunatic enemies. But I guess fact remains, she faces like almost no competition, and staff experience allows her to grow without taking away experience from other characters who might be fighting each other over kills.
Mm-hmm.
Which can lead to things where if Anna shows up with an early Master Seal, you know, the instant Sage or Lyssa can actually be kind of a powerhouse.
Yes. Obscenely so. I'm going to be entirely honest. I feel like putting Cleric or Priest anywhere lower than A is kind of a disservice.
I'm not sure if I would quite place it that high, but
That's fair. Thinking like a high B or something?
maybe just behind Trickster, because Trickster does what it does plus combat, even though Trickster requires more work to get going.
Fair.
Well, I guess barring Anna, who just kind of shows up and gives you a combat Trickster for free-ish.
Yeah. That's fair enough. And, ooh, War Cleric / War Monk. I love this class.
It's an extremely strong support class, and you get a very
Yes.
good one for free because of Libra.
Oh. Wait. Sorry about this. Hold on.
Yep.
Okay, is it okay if we, cut the recording in half after we're done with, War Cleric and War Monk?
Sure.
Alright, perfect. So, I love this class, mainly because of pure bias. Like, stabs and 1-2 range axes are... It's funny. It's more funny to me. It's good in, like, normal and hard mode of this game. Lunatic is where it suffers, and Lunatic Plus, oh god. I don't even want to think about what happens in Lunatic Plus with War Cleric.
It's not going to be fighting a lot in Lunatic Plus, but, generally speaking, like, Libra does come in with the stats where if he needs to emergency combat, he can do it, and he can do it well until about, I want to say a little before Vom. Although he might be able to prolong that if he's doing a lot of rescuing, because rescuing is worth a bajillion experience.
Yes. Ooh. Okay. Where would you want to rank War Cleric and War Priest?
Probably put it at or maybe above Trickster.
Okay. That sounds fair.
Yeah, because it's definitely not going to compare it to Sage, but as far as the other classes that are mostly leaning on their staff utility, it's definitely very good, and it's available a little bit earlier than, like, Libra is available a little bit earlier than Anna would be,
Yeah.
and War Monk's, optimal-ish weapons a little more available than Trickster, because Trickster really wants Levin Sword, and you get very few of those.
Yeah. Not only that, but there are a lot of other units that really benefit off of that too. Especially if you're running Dark Knights.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, yeah, I feel like that's fair. Okay. So.
So we're gonna cut this and do a part 2?
Yeah, well... Yeah, I feel like we should just, like, cut the recording in half for a little bit. Take a small break and, do the do. So, yeah, we'll be right back. Right at the tone of the cut, so, yeah, see... Okay, welcome back. We just had to take a short break and, split up the recording for the sake of, hopefully not having it corrupt. But if it did, I guess, we're partway screwed, aren't we?
We'll figure something out.
We'll figure something out. Future Ethan, figure something out.
No!
Okay, so... We kind of alluded to this while we were talking about Lissa and the Cleric class. as well as the monk class. But Troubadour, how do you think that stacks up? Because mounted healing has always been historically really good in the Fire Emblem franchise. Heck, even in the game
Right.
after this, it's still really good. But you were alluding to earlier the fact that the one that we get, Maribel, kind of has an uphill battle ahead of her, which I agree. She definitely does.
Yeah. IS unfortunately kind of throws a bunch of unfavorable maps at her not too long after she joins.
Mm-hmm. Deserts.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Yeah, and because technically Alyssa could also reclass it if she wanted to, but she ends up not wanting to because of the deserts.
Mm-hmm. I mean, realistically, after the fact, it could be pretty good on her for, like, the lion's share of Volm. But even then, like, I still feel like her main class line is actually pretty good. If not better than what she would be going into if she did do Troubadour and, Strategist? No, it's Valkyrie in
Or
this game.
Valkyrie. Yeah. Yeah, Valkyrie is, like, in a vacuum would technically be more flexible than Sage, but just because of the way the maps are set up and Maribel starting unfavorably, and then those who can reclass the Troubadour not being terribly interested in it.
Yeah. At the
It's a
very
little bit
least,
of a
though,
goof.
yeah. It is still healing, though.
Right, and it's mounted stays when we can, so it's definitely not like bottom of the barrel or anything, but it definitely, I feel like those issues obstruct it from being like particularly high tier.
Yeah. At the very least, though, the skills that it does get, like resistance +2, it could be good in a vacuum to have. But Demoiselle is really what is exciting to me. Because Demoiselle is it's a defense boost to your melee units, essentially. It's an aura.
No. Yeah, it's an aura, although it's kind of an awkward one. 'Cause
Yes.
unlike Fates, it doesn't just provide like flat damage reduction. You're getting 10 avoid and 10 dodge, which it's all right.
It's
the
alright.
void
It
is
just
yeah, the
isn't
avoid is
100%.
probably not going to get you dodge tanky. It's kind of the same problem as you have avoid +10. It's like, it's still a bit of a gamble.
Yeah.
The crit avoid, that's a little more valuable, but falls off quickly once the units that the Valkyrie is supporting. Well, I guess it's Troubadour. Is supporting gets like to B rank basically in their supports, so it starts being less valuable there.
Yeah.
Except, I guess, in some niche cases where maybe if you're facing opposing sorcerers with anathema and or ruin or killer weapons, but that doesn't come up super often.
Yeah.
And in the case, I guess in the case of ruin, it might also not be enough.
Yeah. Because from personal experience, Ruin has ridiculously high accuracy.
Or high base crit.
Yeah.
Ruin's accuracy is average-ish, I think.
I think it,
But it's got 50 base crit, which is higher than any
Absurd.
killer weapon.
yeah.
Okay, it's got 60 hit, which is actually lowish.
Yeah, that is a little low. Still, when it comes to what you're going up against, I'm sorry, but I feel like Demoiselle could be better on a combat class. Like a combat healer or something. Which, I guess, Valkyrie is, but...
Yeah, it's a matter of getting there.
yeah. Since it's going to be a slow climb either way, even if you do have rescue. Which definitely helps. I'm kind of tempted to put both Troubadour and Valkyrie under War Cleric / War Monk and Cleric and Monk.
Troubadour for sure. Valkyrie could maybe be a touch higher.
Okay.
Because it does have the mounted tome
That is
combat.
true.
Even if Maribel struggles for it and Lissa might not be super interested in picking it up. It's something that you could maybe reasonably do with the kids, like going for the Valkyrie, which bypasses the awkward Troubadour phase, I guess.
That is true, yeah.
So I kind of want to rate it at least above Trickster.
Alright. I can agree to that. Yeah, that works. Okay, so from a frankly mediocre class to, oh god, this class keeps getting better and better. Pegasus Knight.
Well, I would argue the Awakening Pegasus is a little more average-ish, I guess.
What the hell?
It's still good because like Sumi and Cordelia are kind of premium training projects, but they do need work for sure.
Agreed.
They need good husbands to touch things up, and Sumi in particular needs to worry about her durability, and I guess depending on what you're doing, she might need to worry about her strength unless you're doing like funny Sumia doing low damage so that Crom can do all the damage with dual strike shenanigans.
That would be a pretty effective way to train her in the higher difficulties like Lunatic and Lunatic Plus, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it kind of turns into a little bit of a requirement in the early levels for her. Especially if you're using Crom.
Yeah.
And before Crom swaps over to Cavalier, because up until then, Crom's not giving her any strength.
Yeah. Like, Pegasus is also a good reclass option to most female units, I believe. Because, well, obviously...
Well, for who it's available to, I don't know if... I mean, Robin, of course, it could make it work, but actually, it's one of those... Pegasus ends up being kind of one of those ones that is actually a little bit undesirable for Robin, because female Robin probably doesn't want to give up tomes. And,
fair.
Then you're running around with, or I guess flying around with a lance and axeman, which is maybe not so great. I know that any % speedrun does that, but
don't they do that on like easy?
Yeah, they do it on normal, and even then it runs into issues where you might still just die.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the early class sets. Lissa definitely doesn't want to be in it. Maribel definitely doesn't want to be in it. Olivia in it is a meme. You really don't want to do that. It can sort of work, but you probably shouldn't.
Yeah. But did she Gale Force? No. You need to get a kill in order to do Gale Force. So, no.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, I guess it would kind of turn into doing the funny dual strike thing, because Olivia has very little strength, but shouldn't have any problem doubling.
Yeah. Since she is obscenely fast.
I guess, let's see. Cynthia's okay staying in it once you get the kids. But I'm not. Under normal circumstances, I don't know if any of the girls, even if they get like a Robin parentage, are super interested in going Pegasus Knight. I've done it for Resetless with Lucina because I want to do specific things with her, but technically
I've done it with,
speaking,
Severo once or twice.
that's fair.
It's fun.
She could probably actually do it.
It is really fun. Since she naturally has the strength and speed to make it work. Like, she isn't the hardest hitting child unit, unless you, like, give her a really good parent. But, still, you are able to make it work when it comes to her. But...
Yeah, so I think the conclusion we're coming to here is it's a decent class, but not like a standout like its promotions tend to be.
yeah, that's most of the classes that are in B tier, honestly.
Indeed.
Mid. You know what? Where would be the mid of B tier? I doubt it would even be this high, honestly.
I guess that might be yeah, that's probably an okay-ish position for it.
Alright. Okay, so now we go to mid to, oh god, fantastic, and oh god, why is this even in this game? Okay, I feel like here we probably need to get the obvious one out of the way. Just because of something that we've been alluding to. Gale Force.
Alright, so we're gonna jump to Darkfire.
Yeah.
Alright, well.
It's the speedrunner's choice. Look, Tomes and Lances, really, really good.
Yep. And Gale Force allows it to play around the more dangerous enemies because its durability is technically not the best, so it can't just completely bunga.
But hey, if you're doing it right, Gale Force is going to be part of the reason why you are transferring into other classes as well. And
yeah,
let alone the fact that it has rally movement, which is dumb.
well, I'm not sure if I call rally movement that good. It's one of those things where it enables some good plays in Apotheosis, but I don't think you're gonna be doing too much with it in the normal story.
Yeah.
There might be some niche places. I know the speedrun uses it. The Fast Clear chapter 14, I think.
I think so.
Because it's a little bit faster than using pair up to get the move +1.
Yeah.
So I 5-second save or something weird like that, but rally move kind of niche. Mostly what I consider an apotheosis thing. In particular, I think you almost need to stack it with Rally Heart to make it a meaningful move boost.
Yeah. Because you're also getting +2 stats on everything, including movement, I think it was?
Rally Heart is just +1 movement
Oh,
on top of
+1.
that. But still, you stack it with Rally Move and you get +2 movement, which then if you're running that with Gale Forces can be a significant distance covered.
Yeah.
But it's kind of one of those things where after doing 3 houses and seeing Stride and then looking back at this is like, yeah, buffing this kind of thing and then making it Stride, even though it seems overpowered, I think that's the only way to make it like a high impact thing. Because +1 move on its own just isn't doing a lot.
Yeah. But it's still really good in like early levels. It's like really good in early parts of the difficulty curve too. But yeah, I can definitely see it being niche.
It's also kind of... Oh, go ahead.
Because the reason why it's so good in the earlier difficulties is because you don't need to worry about as much. You can clear out chapters a lot easier, especially with how grinding works in this game, if you do choose to grind.
Right. But I guess I would argue that it runs into the Rally Spectrum issue, too. Your Dark Flyer is probably one of your best combat units, so you end up not wanting to rally with them either.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I could definitely see being a big problem, especially later on. But still, Gale Force is amazing. Especially on a class that is able to use lances, second best melee weapon in the franchise, especially with the 1-2 range, and magic!
Yep.
Straight up magic!
Flying Tomes is definitely a big ridiculous.
Yes. There's a reason why Ivy's so good in Fire Emblem Engage. Like, she has horrible hit rates, but flying magic is flying magic. Actually,
And
was it horrible? Was it horrible
Engage also
hit rates
has
or horrible
engraves.
speed? That is true.
Her speed's pretty bad, but her dex is not anything to write home about, but engraves quite easily fix up that hit issue.
Yeah. Now I guess the question is, do we put Dark Flyer higher or lower? Or keep her there?
I'm sort of inclined to put it above there, but they are kind of comparable.
Yeah.
Warrior's damage output will be a little bit lowerish typically, just because it has to contend with physical, but it's got better durability for more aggressive, full-on juggernauting potential.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Dark Flyer has that magical DPS on its side, and the ability to fly, and Gale Force. Honestly,
Yes.
I'm willing to put it a little bit below. Because Gale Force is a level 15 skill, so it at least takes a little bit to get there.
Right. Although, even without Gale Force, it's usually, especially if it's rushed for, the Flying Tomes is quite strong, especially in the early maps where the enemies aren't really built to defend against it.
Oh god, yeah. Alright, and... Ooh! Next up is Falcon Knight. Unlike in previous games, Falcon Knights in this game have staves. And you know what that means? Flying rescue.
Yeah. I mean, it's technically going back to... at least I'm pretty sure Yugdral Falcons were Staff Lance, weren't they? Or what, Sword Lance, wasn't it?
I think it was
That,
Sword Lance.
Sword Staves.
Oh, Sword Stave,
that-
okay.
Because I think they had Sword or Staff access, so I think it might be in Sword Staves.
Maybe.
Now I have to double check that. So otherwise, it'll bug me if I don't.
Future Ethan, put it up on screen now.
I wonder if this will become a trend.
No!
But,
Good call.
yeah, Rally Speed and Lance Fair. An extra +4
Okay.
on
So
Lances.
yeah. Pegasus Knight was Sword Lance, and then Falcon is Sword Lance Staff. So I guess
Oh!
I was just forgetting. They just get Cavalier control.
They get Cavalier control, yes. But yeah, Falcon Knight busted. Like, Rescue Staff, obviously. Rally Speed,
Right.
which is Rally Speed. It's good for everybody. And I think it's also good in Apotheosis? Is it?
Yeah, well, Apotheosis, you want to be stacking up offensive power. So you're usually looking to do speed, spectrum, heart, strength, and magic. And if you can get the other secondaries on top to improve your hit rate and proc rates and stuff, then you have a second rallier.
Well, there you go then. And,
Yeah, it's hard to deny speed, especially since Apotheosis in particular has some fairly high speed benchmarks it wants you to hit. Even stuff like Future Past has some very fast enemies that are quicker than the reinforcements you'll see at, let's say, endgame Grima.
yeah. And, one of my favorite skills in this game, because of how frickin' good 1-2 range lances are, at least in my playthroughs, Lance Fair, really good.
Yeah, Lancer definitely helps Falcon, because their strength can be a little bit mediocre, but then if you throw Lance Fair on top with them doubling, that's essentially plus 10 damage.
Yeah. Not only that, but if you are a female unit, specifically a female unit that uses a lot of lances, you are really going to be benefiting off of that, especially if you were just dipping into this. Like, what I like to do, personally, and I can only get away with this because of the lower difficulties, I think, is send Sully into Falcon Knight just to get Lance Fair, and then hop back out.
Are you sure it's... No, it can't be Sully. Because Sully is Wyvern.
Oh, right. I'm a fool. God, I know that there was a unit that I do this with. Crap, why am I blanking on this?
So maybe a kid?
It might be a kid, yeah.
So Gen 1 Pegasus Knight Axis is... aside from the default Pegasus Knights, is in some very awkward choices.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me double check. Because this is going to bother me if I don't check it. Perfect. Thank you, Serenus Forest.
I guess on the topic of, since you're talking about Sully, do you maybe mean Kel's? Sending Kel through, maybe with, I don't know, if you bring in Donald as a husband or something to give her Pegasus access.
I think so? Yeah, I think so. Right, yeah. Yeah, it is Kale. It is Kale.
Alright, mystery solved.
Mystery solved. Fantastic. But, yeah, Kale really benefits off of, Lance Fair. Especially because of the fact that you can just send her back into either Knight or Cavalier, and she's busted. Not only that, but Wyvern Rider also really benefits off of this. So, that's a plus.
Yeah, you can run a Lance Wyvern.
Yes. In fact, I'm a little bit more used to doing that, but even then, like, she is really good even without the Wyvern access. I do Wyvern most of the time with her, though, after having my fun in general. But,
well, it is a strong class, so...
Yes. Honestly, with everything going for Pegasus Knight, I want to say tip-top of A, but I realistically believe that it's like mid-A tier at best.
Yeah, I want to put it... Yeah, ahead of Cavill. It's probably good.
Okay. Because, don't get me wrong, it has really good stuff. However, what we have above it is absurd. And what comes after it is even more so. So, I feel like we can't rate it as well as Darkfire, or heck, even Wyvern Rider or Wyvern Lord, since we're coming up on those. But it is still a really good class in this game.
Yeah, it's one of those classes that manages to work as a hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fairly rare.
Oh, yeah. And if you can make it work, go for it. We ain't stopping you. Okay, so next up is Wyvern Rider. And, strength +2, flying unit, axes. A tier, tops. There's obviously a lot more going into that, but...
Yeah.
Like... God, this class is good.
Yeah. Yeah, Wyvern Rider itself, I might put it at the bottom of A. 'Cause it's good, but you kind of have to request for it. And
yeah.
When I said, namely, you're probably doing Wyvern Pan. I guess you could also, like, intuitively Wyvern Robin or Morgan wouldn't be terrible either.
Yeah.
But Pan is kind of the prime candidate and sort of embarrasses Church, unfortunately.
It's sad to see, but what else can you say?
Yeah. It's just that base speed kills Church, and you really have to work at it. She basically needs a sword master to keep her speed afloat, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, unless you're going backpack, we've shown that you don't want to be going Swordmaster. Okay.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess you'd appreciate if you can get her an assassin too. Swordmaster or assassin as a backpack, but it's a lot of work for a late joining wyvern.
Mm-hmm. And ooh, speaking of wyverns, Wyvern Lord. You get lances now, which is another plus. And
Yeah, most of the time that's going to mean beast killer access.
yes. Beast killer good. Beast killer real good. I guess it also has quick burn as well, but
Yeah, quick burn's kind of okay, but mostly because you'd stack it with tantivity, so you can kind of pretend you're a dodge tank, but not really.
yeah. I feel like the biggest way that you'd go into Wyvern Lord and use quick burn is, I guess, if you're long queue and trying to go for a dodge tank build. But even then, long queue has better places to go.
Yeah, I think I'd rather do assassin than that for him, but
Yeah.
it's something that could be tried, I guess.
If somebody sends me a video of them doing that, that's it. No notes. I'll watch it. I want to see that. God, this is weird coming from a expanded Fire Emblem background. And I say expanded, but it's mainly the GBA games and Tellius. But I'm so used to wyverns being so much higher.
Yeah, it does tend to overpower the tier lists a lot of the time.
Yeah. Meanwhile, right now it's kind of not.
Yeah, actually, I think the availability issues, coupled with the defaults not being as good with it, I'd almost put it under Paladin here.
Agreed.
Because, yeah, Church has issues, Jerome has more issues because his map has such beefed up enemies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit of a hard sell, whereas Sumi and Cordelia come in early and have the Chapter 8 feeding chamber for them.
Yeah. And a lot of utility even outside of that, because whether you're going for Gale Force or mixed staff user, you're doing them a service. Meanwhile, takes a lot of work.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work. Although, if you do go through the trouble of building a Wyvern Lord Pan, she does end up being quite the powerhouse.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The problem is that you're usually throwing the first, second seal at Robin.
Yep. Okay. Griffin Rider.
Griffin is kind of unfortunate. It's actually got decent skills. Like, Deliverer is pretty cool, and Lancebreaker is a nice to have, but
Can I say it?
Alright, sure.
This is the worst class in the game.
No. Villager exists.
Fair, but aptitude.
Aptitude is a big hole to dig Donald out of. It's better on his kids, but
Fair.
let me put it this way. Pan has similar growths to Donald after Donald has aptitude.
Fair enough.
But I mean, Griffin is still flying axes. It
That's
has
fair.
it has okay. Like it's a little faster, less strong than Liver, and less durable. And it gives up the lance access. But I mean, if you were to say take someone you're building as a Wyvern rider and put them into Griffin instead, they'd still do okay.
Where are you thinking? Because you obviously know what I'm thinking.
I kind of want to say it still belongs in either high B or low A.
I can work with high B. Where, though?
I think I'd rather have it than Sniper.
Okay. Alrighty. Okay, another obvious one.
Yeah, Dancer, there's my other class for S tier. See, I told you it wouldn't be too much of a discussion.
Yeah, it's not even a discussion at all. Like, the swords, not good on any dancer, really. But
Livia's
it's
really
there.
not going to be properly fighting. She doesn't have the stats for it. Unless you significantly favor her and force the issue, she's just not.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, why it's kind of shocking that Seedal has actual durability and doesn't fold when something looks at him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot to mention when we were talking about Griffin. Thank God Engaged actually did this class as Surface.
It is a little weird that they just reskinned it into, or Falco into it there, though.
It is, but at least it works.
I suppose.
Okay. Now it's time for statistically worst class in the game.
Nani?
Yep. It's just-
Look, I'm okay with Donald. I never use him because there are better villagers in this game. There are better villagers in this franchise.
Yeah, like I always say, his biggest issue is that he has a niche that he struggles with because he's competing with Robin and Pan.
Mm-hmm.
So being like distant third best in a 3 out of 3 race is not flattering.
Not flattering at all. Which, I mean, you could do some cool stuff with aptitude, but pass it on to your kids, man.
Yeah, it's definitely, you have to give it to the kids to really reap full benefits unless you want to force the issue. Because on the Lunatics, when Donald is trying to do anything in this chapter, if you give him speed so he doesn't get doubled, he gets one shot. If you give him durability so he doesn't get one shot, he gets doubled and dies. So he has to be spoon-fed, and he's an axe lance, so he's not going to have good accuracy despite using a bronze lance, and if he misses, he dies.
Mm-hmm. Even on the lower difficulties, it's hard to train him. Not because of the reason you just explained, but because everything dies too quickly.
Yes, everything is too good of a Jagan, so Donald doesn't get to feed.
Yes. Which is kind of heartbreaking, considering that Mozu's literally next door. And if you want a trainee unit, just go to the Dawn Brigade.
It's true.
The Dawn Brigade does everything Donald wants to do, but better. Heck, even what he doesn't want to do, like magic.
The Dawn Brigade actually even has bases that are actually tuned for their enemies.
Excuse me? Never!
Yes! Oh, God. Next tier list is on the Dawn Brigade. When is it coming? Please note, it isn't, but I'd love to do that. Okay. The Tagul.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty down on this class because it's not good, but I was comparing statistics earlier, and it's at least comparable to the Swordlock classes. Because my first gut instinct is to be like, yeah, it's second worst class in the game, but I want to say it's at least comparable to Myrmidon. It's got about the same stats with a little more durability. Mostly the awkwardness is that you can't unequip if you're trying to avoid getting pummeled by counter without losing a ton of stats, because the Beast Stone mechanic brings a bunch of your stats.
I think there's also the issue of para bonuses too. Since
Tagul does give strength and speed, which is a highly desirable backpack bonus.
Yeah. Which, I mean...
I think that would actually... Yeah, that would probably actually put it ahead of Myrmidon.
Yeah, it does. We also have this guy.
Yeah,
I think
well,
this guy too.
Yeah, but Hero and Assassin do combat way better than Tagul.
Yes! Again, if you want beast units, Radiant Dawn and Path of Radiance are that way, and Fates is over there.
I mean, it depends a lot on what kind of beast unit you're using in Radiant Dawn. If you're using cats in Radiant Dawn, it's just going to be more horrible than trying to use a Tagul.
Yeah. Actually, it's also the same if you're using Kitsunes in Fates as well.
Oh yeah, they're very unfortunate. I do appreciate how good wolfskins are, though.
Oh god, yes, wolfskins are ridiculous.
There's something very funny about Keaton getting hexed and still having as much hit points as everyone else who are not hexed.
It's so hilarious. Not only that, but the animations of the wolfskin are frickin' sick, man. Okay, ooh, dragons.
Yeah, Manakete has kind of similar issues to knights, unfortunately. They've got better movement by a decent margin, and better 1-2 range, but anything Luna Plus makes them fold for the most part.
Yeah.
Especially since they're likely to get, well, I guess not super likely to get double, but this is assuming you're giving them a pair up for speed, which means you're not giving them a pair up for durability, so
yeah,
it's definitely not a great situation for them.
Definitely
still better than Tagul, though, for sure. Actually, one thing I forgot to look up for them is what their pair up gives.
That's a good thing to take into
Strength, magic, defense, res.
What?
Nani?
That's actually pretty good for pair bonuses.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Cool. Fine. I'll take it. At the very least...
I would probably put it under Grey Knight.
Okay,
But,
that's fair.
Under Grey Knight better than Archer.
That's equivalent to Corrin's pair of bonuses. If not a little better.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, well, Corrin also gives supportive, though.
Fair. Okay. Ooh. Next up is Conqueror.
I mean, stats-wise, it's better Great Knight, but it has no availability, so...
Now you shall feel the wrath of Super Vegeta!
I'm just inclined to put it
Hear that?
above Villager. Yeah, sure. That's
that works.
good.
Wait a minute.
Because
Because
it's Walhart's Paralog, which you don't get until after chapter 25, so it's the same rigmarole as Gangrel.
Yeah. Okay, I just noticed that the Fire Emblem Phantom Wiki is counting Lodestar as a DLC class?
Yeah, because it's, I think one of the marks you get for winning a DLC map.
Is that even on here? I mean, we could just use that.
Yeah, I suppose. But, I mean, it's just worse, significantly worse Lord, because even though it's kind of got the same class skills, it also doesn't support anyone.
I won't let you destroy another Vegeta!
Yeah.
Like, the Marts are just Iron Harrier who are trying to be stat sticks, but Awakening is very centralized around pair up
Yeah.
and supports, and Marth having none of those is just not going to be able to do much compared to almost any other class or any other character.
Yeah, it's not great. It's really not great. You think where I have them is fine?
Maybe ahead of Conqueror, just barely.
Okay.
Because at least it kind of exists if you choose to do DLC and you have a stat stick there who actually exists and can do stuff.
That's fair. That is
Because
fair.
arguably Walhart has the same issue too, but he shows up later.
Yes.
He is a Robin sexual, so his supports are basically non-existent. So
He at least has the one.
yeah, yeah. But he also has no availability, so
that too. Okay, next up is Bride and Dreadfighter.
yeah, Bride. I mean, Bride has Rally Heart, which is highly desirable if you're using DLC, and especially if you're doing Apotheosis.
Fair.
Bride is... What does its stats look like? I hardly
there's
use
also
DLC
Bond,
stuff.
which restores 10 HP to all allies within 3 tiles of it, which is cool.
Yeah, that's a novelty, but I think that's significantly less exciting.
Yes.
Let me compare this real quick. Well, its caps are similar to Hero.
We finally have a female hero. I mean, we had a female hero, but still.
Yeah, unlike Three Houses, Awakening heroes aren't sexist.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Pegasi in Awakening are still sexist, but oh well. So this is probably... It's probably a low A tier class, because it brings a good unique rally, it has...
I can see that.
Good attacking stats, and can attack around Pavis and Aegis Plus, so... I guess it's kind of what you'd expect from a DLC, like a good DLC class, where IS is trying to make money by selling it.
Yeah. It's just there for the fan service to let people see their favorite waifus in a wedding dress.
Well, I mean, it's also a good class.
That too.
Outside of the waifuism, they did actually put the effort into making it have
Yes.
good numbers, good skills, so, or a good skill.
A good skill. A singular
Yeah.
good skill. Speaking of singular good skills, Aggressor. And Dreadfighter.
That's kind of a ridiculous skill. I'm not quite sure why they decided that should be a thing.
I don't know either.
Because if they were just trying to ape Dreadfighters from Gaiden, I don't think Aggressor is a thing that they have.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either.
Yeah, because at least Shadows of Valentia Dreadfighters just have the resist plus and then have magic damage, so I don't know if they just thought that having magic damage was so overpowered that they should give 10 attack instead, but
Yeah.
that's what we ended up with. But
It's what
I
we
suppose it could also be that thing where they're just trying to make an overpowered class to move DLC.
Yeah. Then here's my question, why not more? It would have sold so many more copies of this game.
I mean, Awakening had a huge run of DLC.
Yeah, that is true.
And it fan serviced a lot of the older games too by having the whole Line Harrier thing with the DLC letting you get the cards for them.
Yeah.
So this...
Considering Aggressor alone, I'm thinking at least high A.
Yeah, it's probably at least as good as Hero.
Yeah. I'm putting it just above, though, considering tomes.
Right. Yeah, it's got that anti-Aegis and Pavis Plus utility.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, let me just double check the stats.
Go for it. There we go. We no longer need TBD.
Yeah, the stats are reasonably high too, so...
I love that our wall for classes in this entire thing were quite literally tactician and warrior for the longest time. I mean, it makes sense, though, considering everything.
Right.
Definitely a lot more A-tier units than I thought.
Yeah, it's maybe a couple more than I anticipated, but I know there are a lot of like instant pick, basically, classes that kind of just stand above the others if you're going for a serious run.
Yeah. Honestly, though, looking at this list, we did a good job.
Yeah.
You did a really good job.
It only took us 3 hours to do, too.
Yeah, it did. I'm gonna be honest, I thought we'd be here for longer. I thought
Same.
that this would be a 3-part series. But hey, I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad that we got to do this in one recording session, and I'm glad to have you on.
I was glad to do it, and I'm happy we were able to keep it shorter. I guess we can't I can't call it like actually short, but
Yeah. I don't know if I'm gonna have to cut this down at all. I probably am because of the small pause at the end that happened on my end, but
right.
Still though, this was fun.
Doesn't hurt to be more concise.
Yeah. Either way, this is our tier list. Do you... Actually, for the sake of, God, why can't I speak? Post your own version of the tier list down in the comments below, or at least a typed out rendition of it, because I'm not sure if you can post images in the comment section of YouTube. And yeah, do you have any final words?
I guess I hope that everyone has as much fun viewing this as I did creating it.
Well said, my friend. Anyhow, thank you guys so much for watching. Go and check out... Hold on. I know I can say it right. KuroiTsubasaTenshi channel and Twitch mainly Twitch channel, but also the VOD channel if you miss any streams. I will have those in the description below, and I think also the end card. I don't know how to integrate Twitch into that, but I'll figure out a way. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.